Joining me now is Keisha Lance Bottoms, senior advisor to the Trump Walz campaign. Thank you for joining me. As we mentioned, Vice President Kamala Harris is right now just finished delivering remarks at a campaign rally in Philadelphia. Earlier today, Harris also attended and spoke at a black church and visited a local barbershop and a Puerto Rican restaurant. What have been your thoughts on Harris's outreach in this point in the campaign, less than 2 weeks from Election Day, specifically among black voters?
Thank you, Reverend Al. It's always great to join you. Listen, Vice President Harris is doing everything that she can possibly do to reach voters. She's out pounding the pavement. We've seen some really big rallies across the country. We're all getting things in our mailboxes. We're getting text messages. We've got people knocking on doors. We have people calling people. That's how you run a campaign. And now it's up to us. I call it the power of one. What is the one thing that each of us can do to make sure that we are successful during this election season? Obviously, those of us who are registered to vote can go and vote, but also leaning in on those people in our community who are still on the fence, still undecided about whether or not they will even vote. People want to hear from trusted voices, and we are the trusted voices in our own families, in our own communities. So now we've got to do our part.
In your home state of Georgia, early voting is underway. As of Saturday night, more than 2.7 million people have already voted in Georgia. That's over half the total 2020 turnout. The total turnout in 2020, I might make clear. And today, a new ABC News Ipsos poll has Harris up 2 points nationally among registered voters and 4 points among likely voters. And while that's still within the margin of error, the poll also shows Harris is outperforming Biden among black and Latino men. What are your thoughts on the current state of play in Georgia?
Well, we know that we have this record turnout, but we still have a ways to go. There's voting going on right now in Georgia. We've seen the Souls to the Polls activities that are happening today. You can early vote through the end of next week, but we've still got to keep pressing. It's great that the numbers are strong, but it's not over until it's over. And the vice president has long said that she is running as an underdog. And when we have close polls like this, we know we really have to lean in. What I am encouraged by is that with the surge in voting that we have seen, that we are really strong. We are neck and neck with Republicans, but we're seeing something different this time. We are seeing Republicans turning out early, which they haven't done in a very long time in this state. But what is it encouraging is that over 90%, I believe, of the registered Republicans have already turned out. So what that means, Reverend, now is that this is going to come down to who can get the rest of their people out. How many people can we get out through the end of this week? How many people can we get out on Election Day? It's going to be a turnout game.
Now, this election will run differently in Georgia than the last one due to a flood of new voting laws pushed by Republicans after 2020. Some of those imposing limits on drop boxes, an increase on election audits, and a ban on handing out water, which dozens of black students and activists protested last weekend. What are Democrats doing to make sure voters aren't disenfranchised by these new restrictions?
Well, we've been encouraging people to make sure that they have checked their registration, to make sure that their registration still is in place, because we know that purges are happening every day in this state. But thankfully, Reverend Al, what we have seen is that Republican elected officials have stepped up in our state, and they have said that what this state election board is attempting to do as it relates to having people hand count ballots, that won't happen. Or shouldn't happen. And we know that the judicial systems had to step in and say that that would not be appropriate during this election season. But the shenanigans continue. The attempts to disenfranchise voters, to make it difficult for people to vote, still exist. And what I say to people is that that's the reason we've got to go out and vote. People are trying to stop us from voting. And we've heard it said many times before that people died for our right to vote, and it's absolutely true. So for us to sit on the sidelines would really be a disgrace to their memories.
Now, both the Harris and Trump campaigns have 9 days to make their final pitches to voters. Last night, Harris campaigned with former First Lady Michelle Obama, one of the Democratic Party's most popular surrogates, and she's expected to deliver a closing argument on Tuesday on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, on Friday, Trump appeared on an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and racked up 26 million views in its first 24 hours. And right now, Trump is holding a rally in his hometown of New York City at Madison Square Garden. Your thoughts on the two campaigns' closing messages?
People need to listen to what's being said. Just for the small bit of the Trump rally that I watched today, there was a lot of offensive language. There a lot of disparaging things said about Latino voters, about immigrants. It's more the same. And you contrast that with the vice president, who is talking about how she will deliver for the American people, how she values people in America, how she wants to make life better for people in this country. She's talked a lot about those of us in the sandwich generation, helping to care for aging parents and for children, what she'll do in terms of down payment assistance, $25,000 towards first-time home buyers, how she wants to make sure that women continue to have the right to choose, how they have autonomy over their own bodies. And contrast with that with what we are hearing daily from Donald Trump. More insults, more disparaging language about people who are citizens of this country, and it's simply exhausting. It is simply exhausting. Yeah. And I can tell you right now, I served as mayor while Donald Trump was president. He did nothing to make our cities better. He made our jobs as leaders more difficult.
And I looked at a little of the Madison Square Garden rally, and what I heard was a lot more profane than profound. Keisha Lance Bottoms, senior advisor to the Harris campaign, thank you for being with us.